Hyunwoo woke up in a bed that was far too comfortable for a prisoner. The mattress beneath him felt like sleeping on a cloud. Soft pillows cradled his head. Silk sheets covered his body. For a moment he thought he was dreaming. Then reality crashed back and he sat up quickly, his heart pounding. The room around him was enormous. The ceiling stretched up at least 20 feet, decorated with glowing crystals that provided gentle light. The walls were made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to shift colors when he moved his head. Expensive-looking furniture filled the space. A desk, chairs, a wardrobe, even what looked like a small kitchen area. This wasn't a cell. This was a luxury apartment. He was wearing clean clothes. Someone had changed him while he slept. The thought made his skin crawl. His old uniform was gone, replaced by soft gray pants and a simple shirt. At least they weren't chains. Hyunwoo stood up and walked to the window. When he looked out, his breath caught in his throat. Stars stretched in every direction. But in the center of the view hung a massive ship, the biggest vessel he'd ever seen. It looked like a city floating in space, all sharp angles and glowing lights. The Eternal Dominion, the princess's flagship. A door opened behind him. He spun around to see Yura entering the room. She'd removed her armor and wore flowing robes of deep purple and gold. Without the battle gear, she looked less like a warrior and more like royalty. But she was still massive, still alien, still dangerous. "You're awake," she said pleasantly. "Good. I was beginning to worry the sedative was too strong for your species." "You drugged me?" Hyunwoo's hands clenched into fists. "Of course. You were quite agitated after leaving your crew. It seemed kinder than letting you exhaust yourself fighting my guards." She moved to a table and poured 2 glasses of something that glowed faintly blue. "Please sit. We have much to discuss." "I'll stand." She shrugged with all 4 shoulders. "As you wish. But this conversation would be easier if you weren't trying so hard to look brave. Where's my crew? Did you keep your word?" "I did. They're halfway to Mars by now, safely away from Imperial space." Yura took a sip from her glass and smiled. "You don't trust me. That's wise. But I always keep my word, Captain. It's one of the few noble traits my family still possesses." Hyunwoo studied her carefully. Every instinct told him this was a trick, a game, a trap waiting to snap shut. But he was alive, his crew was free, and this alien princess was offering him a drink like they were old friends. "What do you want from me?" he asked finally. "Answers." Yura walked to the window and looked out at her flagship. "I've studied your species for 3 years now. Humans fascinate me. Every other race we've conquered submitted within months. Some begged for mercy, others negotiated surrender. But you fight, you sabotage, you resist with everything you have, even when the odds are impossible." "Maybe we're just too stupid to know when we're beaten," Hyunwoo said bitterly. "No, that's not it." She turned to face him, her golden eyes intense. "I've watched recordings of your battles. I've read your literature, studied your history. Humans have survived ice ages, plagues, wars that nearly destroyed your world. You're not stupid. You're stubborn, resilient, and I need to understand why. Why does it matter?" "Because the war is going poorly for both sides," Yura said bluntly. "We control your major colonies, yes. But the resistance grows stronger every month. Our supply lines are constantly attacked. Our soldiers die in ambushes. The cost in lives and resources is staggering. My father, the Emperor, wants to end this with overwhelming force. Genocide, Captain. He's considering wiping out entire human populations to break your spirit." Hyunwoo felt ice in his veins. "And you're telling me this why?" "Because I want another way." She set down her glass and approached him slowly. "I'm third in line for the throne. I have influence but not absolute power. If I can find a path to peace, a way to end this war without exterminating humanity, I might be able to convince the Council. There's no peace while you occupy our worlds." "I know." She surprised him by agreeing. "But there could be terms. Gradual withdrawal, reparations, independence with trade agreements, a real peace, not just one side's surrender." Hyunwoo laughed bitterly. "And what? You expect me to betray my people? Tell you our secrets? Help you crush the resistance?" "No." Yura's voice was firm. "I expect you to help me understand your people well enough to negotiate with them. To find common ground, you'll be my advisor on human affairs. I'd rather die. I thought you might say that." She walked to her desk and activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air. Humans in chains, prison camps, execution yards. "This is what happens if you refuse. My brother, Crown Prince Kethan, We'll take over the human campaign. He believes in total war. No mercy, no prisoners. Every human over the age of 15 will be considered a combatant and treated accordingly. Hyunwoo stared at the images, feeling sick. He saw children behind fences, saw bodies piled in ditches, saw the future of his species if he said no. But if you help me, Yura continued, I'll use my authority to improve conditions in the camps. Better food, medical care, fair treatment. I'll argue for restraint in military operations. I'll push for diplomatic solutions. I can't promise miracles, but I can promise that fewer humans will die. You're blackmailing me with my own people's lives. Yes. She didn't deny it. I'm being honest about that, at least. This is the reality of our situation, Captain. You can refuse and die a martyr while millions suffer, or you can compromise, work with me, and maybe save some of them. Hyunwoo closed his eyes. He thought about his sister Jiwon, fighting with the resistance on Mars. He thought about the families in the camps, the children who'd never known freedom. He thought about Dae-hyun and the crew who were alive because he'd agreed to this. I won't betray the resistance, he said finally. I won't give you tactical information or tell you where our bases are. I'm not asking you to. I want cultural insight, not military intelligence. How humans think, what motivates you, what you value, the things that would make peace possible. And you think knowing those things will help? I think understanding is the first step to peace, Yura said. She moved closer and he had to crane his neck to look up at her. I think you and I might be able to find a better way than endless war. You really believe that? I have to. Her voice was softer now, almost vulnerable. Because if I don't, if there's no hope for coexistence, then everything I've done has been pointless. Every order I've given, every battle I've won, it all becomes just meaningless violence. Hyunwoo saw something in her eyes then. Doubt, maybe even guilt. This alien princess wasn't the monster he'd expected. She was complicated, conflicted. Maybe even someone who genuinely wanted to end the war. If I agree, he said slowly, I want proof that you're keeping your word. I want to see the camps. I want to verify that conditions improve. Done. And I want regular communications with my crew, to let them know I'm alive. That's dangerous, but I'll allow it. Under supervision. And if I find out you're lying, if this is all just a trick to get information, I'll find a way to kill you. I don't care how big you are or how many guards you have. Yura smiled. It was the first genuine smile he'd seen from her. There's that human spirit again. Very well, Captain Hyunwoo. We have an agreement. She extended one of her 4 hands. Hyunwoo looked at it for a long moment. This was it. The moment where he either stayed true to everything he believed or compromised for a chance at something better. His father would have called him a traitor. His sister would be ashamed. But maybe, just maybe, this was how wars actually ended. Not with glory or victory, but with hard choices and uncomfortable alliances. He took her hand. It was warm and rough, twice the size of his own. They shook once, sealing the deal. Don't pretend you don't see the logic in this, Captain, Yura said quietly, or that you don't feel the pull between us. Hyunwoo pulled his hand back, unsettled by the words. The pull between them? What did that mean? But he didn't ask. Instead, he said, when do we start? Tomorrow. Tonight you rest. Get used to your quarters. Tomorrow we change the future. She left him alone in the vast room and Hyunwoo sank into a chair, wondering what he'd just agreed to. 3 weeks passed aboard the Eternal Dominion, and Hyunwoo found himself in a routine he never expected. Every morning, Yura would summon him to her strategy room. They would sit at a massive table covered in holographic displays and talk. About humans. About culture. About war and peace and everything in between. At first, he gave her nothing. Simple answers. Basic information that anyone could find in a textbook. But Yura was patient. She asked better questions. She shared things about her own people, creating a strange exchange of knowledge. And slowly, Hyunwoo found himself actually engaging with the conversations. Your people value family above almost everything, Yura said one morning, studying a display of human social structures. Even your military units are organized like families. You call your commanding officer by their first name sometimes. You eat meals together. This is very strange to us. Why is that strange? Hyunwoo asked. He'd gotten comfortable enough to sit down during these meetings now, though the chairs were still too large for him. Veltharians see military service as duty, not kinship. We follow orders because of rank and honor, not because we care about the person giving them. She looked at him curiously. Do you care about your crew as family? Of course. Daehyun is like a brother to me. Subin reminds me of my little sister. We're not just a crew. We're a family that chose each other. Fascinating. Yura made notes on a datapad with two of her hands while the other two poured tea. The multitasking still amazed him. This explains why you sacrifice yourselves for each other so readily. It's not just duty. It's love. The word hung in the air between them. Hyunwoo shifted uncomfortably. It's loyalty. That's different, is it? She smiled at him. That same unsettling smile that made him wonder what she was thinking. Tell me about your sister. Jiwon, yes? His chest tightened. How do you know her name? I have intelligence reports. She's with the resistance on Mars, a demolitions expert. Quite talented, apparently. Yura set down her tea. Don't worry. I've marked her file as non-hostile. No operations will target her specifically. Why would you do that? Because you're helping me and I keep my promises. Your family is safe as long as you honor our agreement. It should have felt like a threat, but the way she said it sounded more like reassurance. Hyunwoo was beginning to realize that Yura was genuinely trying to make this work. She wasn't just using him for information. She was actually learning, changing her policies based on what he told her. The prison camps had already seen improvements, better food rations, medical supplies, an end to the worst abuses. Yura had used her authority to replace 3 brutal camp commanders with more reasonable officers. It wasn't freedom, but it was something. Still, Hyunwoo hadn't forgotten his real mission. Every night he met with a Veltharian servant named Tal Ren in the ship's lower levels. Tal Ren was small for a Veltharian, barely 7 feet tall and had a nervous disposition. But he was sympathetic to the humans and willing to help. I sent your message to the resistance, Tal Ren whispered one night in a storage room. They know you're alive. But Captain, they're planning something. A rescue mission. You need to tell them not to come. A rescue? Hyunwoo felt hope and fear in equal measure. When? I don't know. But they're mobilizing resources. It will be dangerous. Many will die. Get another message out. Tell them I'm working on something bigger. Tell them to wait. Hyunwoo gripped Tal Ren's shoulder. Can you do that? I'll try. But be careful, Captain. If the princess finds out you're sending messages, our deal will mean nothing. Hyunwoo knew that. He was playing a dangerous game, working with Yura while secretly maintaining contact with the resistance. If she discovered the truth, she'd probably kill him. Or worse, she'd end the humanitarian reforms out of spite. He had to be careful. The problem was that he was starting to actually like her. That was the most dangerous part. Yura wasn't the monster he'd expected. She was intelligent, curious, and surprisingly kind when she thought no one was watching. He'd seen her defend a junior officer from an abusive superior. He'd watched her spend hours reviewing individual prisoner requests for family reunification. One evening, after a particularly long strategy session, Yura invited him to her private observation deck. It was a beautiful space with a transparent ceiling that showed the stars above. She'd prepared food, both human and Veltharian dishes arranged on a low table. I thought we could eat together tonight, she said. Not as captor and prisoner, but as colleagues. Maybe even friends. Friends? Hyunwoo sat down carefully. The word felt wrong in his mouth. Is that so impossible? She sat across from him, folding her long legs beneath her. We've been working together for weeks now. We talk every day. We're trying to end a war together. Isn't that friendship? My people would call me a traitor for sitting here with you. And my people would call me weak for treating you as an equal. Yura picked up a piece of fruit and bit into it. Perhaps we're both traitors to our sides. Or perhaps we're the only sane ones in this insane situation. They ate in silence for a while. Hyunwoo tried the Veltharian food. It was spicy and strange, but not bad. Yura struggled with chopsticks, her large hands making them look like toothpicks. She laughed at herself when she dropped food twice. Your eating implements are clearly designed to torture visiting dignitaries, she joked. Or maybe your hands are just too big. He shot back without thinking. She raised an eyebrow. Was that a joke, Captain? Are we comfortable enough now for humor? He surprised himself by smiling. Maybe. Don't let it go to your head. Too late. I'm already planning to tell everyone that the fierce rebel captain made me laugh. The moment felt normal. Too normal. Hyunwoo reminded himself that this woman's soldiers had killed thousands of humans, that her empire had enslaved entire worlds, that no matter how nice she seemed, she was still the enemy. But then she said something that changed everything. "I've been doing research into the history of your resistance," Yura said quietly. "Did you know that 60% of the attacks blamed on human rebels were actually false flag operations?" Hyunwoo nearly dropped his glass. "What?" "I found classified reports. Attacks staged by our own military to justify harsher responses. Civilian targets bombed and blamed on your people. It's been happening since the beginning of the war. Why are you telling me this?" "Because I think someone in our high command is deliberately prolonging this war. They're profiting from it, and I need your help to prove it." Before Hyunwoo could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Red emergency lights flashed. Yura was on her feet instantly, all traces of friendliness gone. She was a warrior again, commanding and cold. "Report," she shouted into her communicator. A voice crackled back. "Your Highness, we're being hailed by Crown Prince Kethan's flagship. He demands an immediate audience with you." Yura's expression darkened. "My brother. He's here." She looked at Hyunwoo. "Stay in your quarters. Don't let him see you. If Kethan finds out about you, everything we've worked for will be destroyed. What does he want? Me to fall in line? To stop being soft on the humans?" Her golden eyes were intense. "He's going to demand I hand you over for interrogation." "Enhanced interrogation. You know what that means?" Hyunwoo did. "Torture. They would break him for information and then kill him. I won't let that happen," Yura said firmly. "You're under my protection, but this is going to get complicated." 2 hours later, Hyunwoo was hiding in his quarters when he heard shouting in the corridor outside. One voice was Yura's. The other was deeper, more aggressive. "Her brother." He pressed his ear to the door and listened. "You've gone soft, sister," the male voice was saying. "The Emperor is disappointed in your lack of results. Hand over the human prisoner and perhaps I'll speak favorably of you to the council." "The prisoner is mine by right of conquest," Yura replied coldly. "Touch him and you challenge me directly. Is that a threat?" "It's a promise." There was a tense silence. Then footsteps walking away. When the door opened, Yura stood there looking exhausted. Her face was tight with anger. "He's gone for now," she said. "But he'll be back. We're running out of time, Hyunwoo. If we're going to expose this conspiracy, we need to move fast. Then let's move." Hyunwoo stood up. "Tell me what you need." Yura smiled, and for the first time it looked like the smile of an ally. Not a captor. Not an enemy. A partner. "I need you to do what humans do best," she said. "Think outside the box. Find connections we're missing. Help me bring down the people who are keeping this war alive." "All right." He extended his hand. "Partners?" She took it, her massive hand engulfing his. "Partners." Neither of them noticed Tal ran watching from down the corridor, a worried expression on his face. Hyunwoo stared at the data scrolling across the holographic display, his heart pounding harder with every line he read. It was 3 a.m. by ship time, and he'd been searching through Yura's military databases for hours. She'd given him limited access to research human colony locations, but he'd found something else entirely, something that made his blood run cold. Supply routes that made no sense, weapon shipments to non-existent facilities, money flowing into accounts that didn't officially exist, and most damning of all, communication logs showing Imperial officers coordinating with unknown parties before major resistance attacks. "This can't be right," he muttered, pulling up another file. His hands shook as he read, "The Europa Station bombing. 600 civilians dead, including children. The resistance had been blamed and the Empire used it to justify a brutal crackdown. But according to these logs, the explosives were Imperial military grade. The detonation codes came from an Imperial ship. The whole thing was staged. What are you doing up so late?" Hyunwoo jumped and spun around. Yura stood in the doorway of the strategy room, wearing a simple sleeping robe. Even without armor or formal dress, she was imposing, but her expression was curious, not angry. "I couldn't sleep," he said carefully. "So I was reviewing colony data. But I found something else, something you need to see." She moved closer, her eyes narrowing at his tone. "What is it?" "The Europa bombing. You remember it? The attack that killed 600 people?" "Of course. It was one of the worst resistance atrocities. It's the reason the Emperor authorized Level 3 suppression protocols. It wasn't the resistance." Hyunwoo pulled up the files and displayed them in the air between them. "Look at this. The explosives. The timing. The communication patterns. It was your people. Someone in the Imperial military bombed that station and blamed us for it." Yura's face went pale. well, paler than her usual purple. She stared at the evidence, her forehands trembling slightly. No, that's not possible. This has to be falsified data. Someone is trying to frame our military. Look at the authorization codes. These are real, Yura. I've seen Imperial codes before. I've captured enough equipment to know what they look like. He pulled up more files. And it's not just Europa. Look, the attack on Luna Colony. The Titan massacre. The bombing of the peace conference 3 years ago. All of them. All false flag operations. She grabbed the control pad and started pulling up files frantically, checking and cross-referencing. Hyunwoo watched her face as the truth sank in. Horror, disbelief, and then anger. Cold, terrifying anger. Who? She demanded. Who authorized these operations? Hyunwoo traced the authorization chains. They went up through various commanders, but they all converged at one point. One name that appeared again and again.
General Rokthan,
Commander of the 3rd Fleet. He's been coordinating most of the false flag operations for the past 5 years. Rokthan. Yura's voice was like ice. He's been a loyal servant of the Empire for decades. My father trusts him completely. He advises the Emperor on military policy. Then your father is either being manipulated or he's in on it. The words hung between them like a grenade with the pin pulled. Accusing the Emperor was treason. Hyunwoo half expected Yura to kill him on the spot. But she just stood there staring at the evidence. Why? She whispered. Why would they do this? Money, power, control. Hyunwoo pulled up financial records. Look at these accounts. Billions of credits flowing to military contractors, weapons manufacturers, shipbuilders. Someone is getting rich off this war, and the longer it lasts, the richer they get. Yura sank into a chair, looking smaller than he'd ever seen her. Everything I believed, everything I've fought for, it's all built on lies. Hyunwoo felt an unexpected surge of sympathy. She looked lost, broken. This wasn't just about military strategy for her. It was personal. Her entire worldview was crumbling. My parents, he said quietly, they died in the Titan massacre. I was 17. That attack is what made me join the resistance. I wanted revenge on the monsters who killed innocent people. He moved closer to her. But they weren't monsters. They were your people, following orders from someone who wanted this war to continue. I'm sorry. Yura looked up at him and her golden eyes were wet. Veltharians could cry. He'd never known that. I'm so sorry, Hyunwoo. If I'd known, if I'd suspected, you couldn't have known. That's the point. They've been manipulating both sides, making us hate each other, keeping the war going so they can profit from our suffering. She wiped her eyes with one hand and straightened up. The warrior princess was coming back. We need more evidence. These files are damning, but they're not enough. Rokthan could claim they were fabricated. We need something irrefutable. What about witness testimony? Someone on the inside who can confirm the operations? That would work. But who would betray someone as powerful as Rokthan? Yura thought for a moment. Wait, there was a junior officer. A woman named Silvara. She was part of Rokthan's staff 3 years ago, but she requested a transfer to a remote outpost. The request was unusual. Officers usually want to stay close to power, not run away from it. Think she saw something she wasn't supposed to? It's possible. She's stationed on Outpost 774. That's about 2 days from here. Hyunwoo felt a surge of hope. Can we reach her? We can do better than that. We can go there in person. Yura stood up, energy returning to her massive frame. I'll tell my crew we're conducting an inspection tour. Outpost 774 is on the frontier, so it makes sense to check their readiness. And if Rokthan finds out what we're really doing, then we'll deal with that when it happens. She looked at him with determination. This ends now, Hyunwoo. No more false flags. No more manipulated conflicts. We're going to expose these criminals and end this war properly. 2 days later, they arrived at Outpost 774. It was a small station orbiting a dead moon, home to maybe 300 soldiers. The commander, a grizzled veteran named Torvex, seemed surprised by the princess's visit but rolled out the formal welcome. Yura played her part perfectly. She inspected troops, reviewed supplies, asked the expected questions. Hyunwoo stayed in her shadow, wearing a simple uniform that made him look like one of her staff. Most of the Veltharians barely glanced at him. It took hours to get Silvara alone. She was a communications officer, thin even by Veltharian standards with nervous eyes that darted around constantly. When Yura asked to speak with her privately, she looked terrified. They met in a secure room, just the three of them. Silvara stood at attention, all four arms rigid at her sides. "At ease, officer," Yura said gently. "You're not in trouble. I need to ask you about your time serving under General Rokthan." Silvara's face went pale. "My princess, I can't. If he finds out I spoke to you, he won't, you have my word. But I need to know what you saw. It's important." The officer hesitated, looking between Yura and Hyunwoo. "Why is there a human here?" "Because this concerns both our species. Please, Silvara, tell me what happened." It all came out in a rush. How Silvara had intercepted coded messages between Rokthan and unknown contacts. How she'd discovered evidence of staged attacks. How she'd reported it to her immediate superior, only to be threatened with execution if she ever spoke of it again. That's why she'd requested the transfer, to get as far away from the conspiracy as possible. "Do you still have copies of those messages?" Yura asked. "I kept one, hidden in a personal data chip. I know I should have destroyed it, but I couldn't. It felt wrong to let that evidence disappear." She pulled a small device from her pocket. "It's all here. Communications proving that Rokthan coordinated the Europa bombing, that he paid resistance contacts to stage attacks, that he's been prolonging the war deliberately." Hyunwoo took the chip carefully. It was tiny in his hand, but it felt heavy. This was it, the proof they needed. "You've done a great service," Yura told Silvara, "for both our peoples. I promise you'll be protected." "Thank you, my princess. But please be careful. Rokthan has allies everywhere, even close to the throne." They left the outpost that evening, the data chip secured in Yura's personal safe. On the journey back to the Eternal Dominion, they sat together in her quarters planning their next move. "We need to present this to the council," Yura said. "If we can convince enough members, they can force my father to act against Rokthan. And if your father is part of the conspiracy, then I'll expose him too." Her voice was hard. "I'm done being blind to the truth, even if it cost me everything." Hyunwoo looked at her with new respect. "You'd really go against your own father? For justice? For peace?" "Yes," she met his eyes. "You've taught me something, Hyunwoo. You humans have this concept of doing what's right even when it's hard, even when it costs you. I'm starting to understand that. We call it integrity. Then I choose integrity over loyalty." She smiled sadly. "My brother would call that weakness. But sitting here with you working towards something real, I've never felt stronger." The moment stretched between them. Hyunwoo felt that strange pull again, the one Yura had mentioned weeks ago. She was alien, enormous, from a species that had enslaved his people. But sitting here planning to take down a corrupt general together, he felt closer to her than to most humans he knew. Hyunwoo stood in front of the holographic display, his leg still aching from the gunshot wound. 2 weeks had passed since the disaster at the neutral station. 2 weeks since he'd learned about Jiwon's death. 2 weeks of planning and preparing for what came next. Yura stood beside him, studying the image of General Rokthan's flagship, the Vengeance. It was massive, heavily armed, surrounded by a fleet of support vessels. Taking it head-on would be suicide. "Intelligence reports he's moving toward the outer colonies," Yura said. "He's planning something big. Another false flag operation, probably. If we're going to stop him, it has to be now. Attacking his flagship with just your forces won't work," Hyunwoo said. "He'll see you coming. His ships are faster, his weapons more advanced. By Veltharian military standards, you can't win. Then what do you suggest?" Hyunwoo smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd spent years fighting impossible odds. "We don't fight by Veltharian standards. We fight human." He pulled up a new tactical display. "Your people are predictable. You follow doctrine, attack patterns, rules of engagement. Everything by the book. That's your weakness. And humans? We improvise, we adapt. We do whatever works, even if it's crazy." He zoomed in on the Vengeance. "You're going to attack Rokthan head-on with your loyalist fleet. A direct assault, exactly what he expects. You'll follow every protocol, every standard formation. He'll be ready for that. So we lose? No, because while you're keeping him busy, I'll be hitting him from below with the resistance." Yura frowned. "The resistance won't work with us. They think we're traitors. They think I'm a traitor, but they still hate Rokthan." Hyunwoo pulled up communication logs. "I've been sending them evidence. Proof that he ordered the attack that killed Jiwon. Proof that he's been manipulating both sides. Sora doesn't trust me anymore, but she wants revenge. How will you reach her?" I won't, someone else will. He activated a communication channel. A face appeared on screen. Dae-hyun. His old first officer looked tired but determined. Captain, Dae-hyun said formally. I got your message. Did you show it to Sora? I did. She's still angry. Still doesn't trust the princess. But she agrees that Rokthan needs to go. He paused. I convinced her to give you one chance. One mission. If it works, maybe we can talk about peace. If it fails, we go back to total war. That's all I need. Hyunwoo felt relief wash through him. Thank you, Dae-hyun, for believing in me. I don't know if I believe in you anymore, Hyunwoo, but I believe Jiwon deserves justice. So I'm in. After the call ended, Yura looked at him with something like admiration. You're building an alliance out of nothing but grief and anger? That's impressive. It's what humans do. We find common ground even when we hate each other. He turned to face her fully. Here's the plan. Your fleet attacks from above. Traditional Veltharian assault. Rokthan will position his ships to counter you. He'll expect honor combat, ship-to-ship exchanges, the whole formal dance. And while we dance, the resistance comes in from below using captured civilian vessels. Freighters, mining ships, transports, things that won't register as threats. We get close, board his ship, and capture him from the inside. Yura's eyes widened. That's insane. It violates every principle of space combat. It's dishonorable. It's effective. Hyunwoo cut her off. The Veltharian military has rules. Humans don't. We fight dirty. We use whatever advantage we can find. That's how we've survived this long against you. It could work, she admitted slowly. If we can coordinate the timing. If your resistance fighters can actually breach his ship. If Rokthan doesn't see it coming. He won't. Because Veltharians don't think like that. You see combat as a formal exchange. We see it as survival by any means necessary. You're asking me to abandon centuries of military tradition. I'm asking you to win. Hyunwoo stepped closer to her. Your way we lose. My way we have a chance. Isn't that worth breaking a few rules? Yura was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. All right. We do it your way. But I want you leading the resistance team. If this is going to work, we need someone who understands both sides. I can't. The resistance won't follow me anymore. Then convince them. You're human. Being persuasive when the odds are impossible is what you do best. 3 days later, Hyunwoo found himself on a small, cramped transport ship with 30 resistance fighters. They were all volunteers, all people who'd lost someone to Rokthan's schemes. Dae-hyun was there, along with Subin and a dozen others he recognized. Sora stood at the front, addressing the group. I'm not going to lie to you. This mission is suicide. We're boarding an enemy flagship surrounded by hostile ships. Most of us probably won't make it back. But if we succeed, we expose the general who's been killing our people. We end the conspiracy. We give humanity a chance at real peace. She looked directly at Hyunwoo. I don't trust the princess. I don't trust the Empire. But Captain Hyunwoo has earned the right to try this. So we follow his plan. We fight his way. And we make those responsible pay. The fighters cheered. It wasn't enthusiastic. More grim determination than excitement. But it was something. Hyunwoo stepped forward. The princess's fleet will engage in 6 hours. That's when we make our move. We approach in 3 waves, posing as civilian refugees fleeing the battle. By the time they realize we're not civilians, we'll be too close for their point defenses to stop us all. And once we board, Subin asked, we split into teams. One team heads for the bridge to capture Rokthan. Another goes to communications to broadcast evidence of the conspiracy. The third team secures our escape route. It's going to be chaos. Stick to the plan, but be ready to improvise. Improvise, Dae-hyun said with a grim smile. The human way. The only way we know. The 6 hours passed too quickly. Hyunwoo spent them checking equipment, reviewing maps of the Vengeance's interior and trying not to think about everything that could go wrong. His leg still hurt from the gunshot. His heart still ached from losing Jiwon. But he pushed it all down. There would be time for grief later. If he survived. Through the viewport, he could see Yura's fleet moving into position. Dozens of ships, all bearing the royal insignia. They were beautiful in a terrible way, graceful and deadly. The Vengeance and its support vessels turned to meet them. They're taking the bait, Sora said, watching the tactical display. Rokthan is positioning for traditional engagement. He has no idea we're coming. The space battle began with a flash of light. Energy weapons exchanged between ships, missiles streaking through the void. The Veltharian fleets moved in practiced formations like a deadly ballet. Yura was keeping her word, fighting exactly how Roktan would expect. "First wave go," Sora ordered. 10 small ships broke from their hiding spots in the asteroid field. They were beat-up freighters and transports broadcasting civilian distress signals. Hyunwoo watched as they approached the battle zone right in the path of the Vengeance. Second wave go. Another 10 ships, including the one Hyunwoo was on. They joined the first wave, all pretending to flee from the combat. A stream of refugees desperate to escape the battle. It was a common sight in war zones. The Vengeance's sensors would flag them as non-threats. Third wave go. The final ships moved in. Now there were 30 vessels clustered near the Vengeance, all seemingly trying to avoid being caught in the crossfire. The general's ship had more important concerns. It was trading fire with Yura's flagship, both vessels hammering each other with everything they had. All ships dropped the act. "Attack pattern now!" The civilian vessels suddenly accelerated. Their holds opened, revealing hidden weapons. Magnetic grapples shot out, latching onto the Vengeance's hull. Boarding tubes extended. In 30 different locations, the resistance began cutting through the armor. Alarms screamed throughout the Vengeance. The massive ship tried to shake off its attackers, but they were too close. Too many. Like ants swarming an elephant, Hyunwoo's team breached first. They cut through the hull and poured into a storage bay, weapons ready. Veltharian soldiers rushed to meet them, but they weren't prepared for the ferocity of the attack. Humans fighting with nothing to lose, with grief and anger and determination. The firefight was brutal and short. Hyunwoo led his team through corridors too large for humans, using their small size as an advantage. They moved fast, staying low, using cover that Veltharians wouldn't think to use. "Bridge is 3 levels up," Daehyun shouted over the sounds of combat. "But there's a security checkpoint ahead." "Then we go through the maintenance shafts," Hyunwoo said. Humans fit, Veltharians don't. They squeezed into access tunnels barely wide enough for their bodies. Behind them, they could hear pursuit. Veltharian soldiers too large to follow. The resistance fighters crawled through darkness and heat, guided only by emergency lights. They emerged on the bridge level, behind the main security point. Roktan's final defense was facing the wrong way, expecting attack from the main corridor. They never saw the humans coming from behind. Hyunwoo kicked open the bridge door. Inside, General Roktan stood at his command station surrounded by officers. He was even bigger than Yura, scarred and brutal-looking. When he saw the humans, his expression was one of pure shock. "Impossible," he growled. "You can't be here." "How did you—" "Human ingenuity," Hyunwoo said, raising his weapon. "Now order your ships to stand down, or we'll broadcast your crimes to the Nth. The Imperial Council chamber was the largest room Hyunwoo had ever seen. The ceiling stretched up so high he couldn't see the top in the dim light. Massive pillars held up the structure, each one carved with the history of the Veltharian Empire. At the center sat the Emperor himself, surrounded by nobles and military leaders. Hyunwoo stood beside Yura, feeling impossibly small. He wore formal clothing that had been made special for him, since nothing in the Veltharian wardrobe would fit a human. His legs still ached, but he stood straight. Daehyun and Sora flanked him. They demanded to be present for this, to see justice done. General Roktan knelt in chains before the Emperor. His armor had been stripped away, his decorations removed. He looked smaller now, diminished, but his eyes still burned with defiance. The Emperor was ancient and enormous, even by Veltharian standards. His skin was nearly black with age, his eyes a deep gold that seemed to see everything. When he spoke, his voice filled the chamber like thunder. "General Roktan, you stand accused of high treason, of staging false attacks against both imperial and human targets, of prolonging war for personal profit, of undermining the throne itself. How do you answer these charges?" "I did what was necessary," Roktan said. "For the Empire, for our future. These humans needed to be crushed completely, not negotiated with, not shown mercy. Your daughter," he glared at Yura, "has been weak. She's allowed sentiment to cloud her judgment." "Weak?" Yura's voice cut through the chamber. "I exposed your conspiracy. I stopped your crimes. I brought you here in chains. If that's weakness, I wonder what strength looks like to you." The Emperor raised one massive hand for silence. "The evidence is clear. General Rockthon coordinated attacks against our own people and blamed our enemies. He profited from weapon sales while soldiers died. He manipulated intelligence reports to present to this very council. His eyes swept the room. And he was not alone. Several members of this council were aware of his actions. Some even benefited from them, nervous shifting among the nobles. Some avoided the emperor's gaze. Others stood defiant. The conspiracy had reached higher than anyone wanted to admit. By the authority granted to me as emperor, I stripped General Rockthon of all rank and titles. His assets are seized. His allies in this conspiracy will be investigated and prosecuted. And as for the war with humanity, the emperor turned his gaze to Hyunwoo. Step forward, human. Hyunwoo's heart pounded, but he walked forward. Every Veltharian eye in the chamber watched him. He felt like an insect among giants, but he kept his head high. You are Captain Hyunwoo of the Human Resistance. You fought against the Empire for years. You killed our soldiers, destroyed our ships. By rights, you should be executed as a war criminal. Then execute me, Hyunwoo said quietly. But know that I fought for my people's freedom. I'd do it again. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Then surprisingly, he smiled. That is what I hoped you would say. A human without spirit is hardly human at all. He gestured broadly. My daughter tells me you proposed this joint operation, that you convinced the resistance to work with her forces, that you led the boarding action personally. I did. You used tactics no Veltharian would consider. Dishonorable tactics. Uncivilized tactics. The Emperor paused. Brilliant tactics. You turned our own expectations against us. You won with cleverness rather than force. That is worthy of respect. Hyunwoo didn't know what to say to that. The war has cost both our peoples too much, the Emperor continued. My daughter has convinced me that peace is possible, that coexistence is preferable to genocide. I'm inclined to agree. Therefore, I offer humanity terms: immediate ceasefire, gradual withdrawal of imperial forces from occupied colonies, reparations for damages, and eventual full independence with mutual trade agreements. The council erupted in voices. Some supported the decision, others protested. The Emperor silenced them with a look. This is not negotiable. I have decided. Those who disagree may challenge my authority directly. No one moved. As for you, Captain Hyunwoo, you will serve as Earth's official ambassador to the Veltharian Empire. You will have diplomatic immunity and authority to negotiate on behalf of your people. Me? Hyunwoo felt dizzy. I'm a rebel, a fighter, I'm not a diplomat. You're someone both sides can work with, Yura said beside him. That's more valuable than any formal training. And my daughter, the Emperor said, his voice carrying affection now, has proven herself worthy of greater responsibility. She is elevated to Crown Princess, first in line to the throne. She will oversee the transition to peace personally. Yura bowed deeply. I am honored, Father. See that you earn it. The Emperor stood, his massive form dominating the chamber. This session is concluded. The war ends today. Later that evening, Hyunwoo stood on a balcony overlooking Earth. The planet hung in space below, blue and beautiful. From here, he couldn't see the scars of war, couldn't see the occupied cities or the prison camps. It just looked perfect. Yura joined him, moving quietly despite her size. She wore flowing robes instead of armor, crown princess robes, marked with the royal seal. How does it feel? She asked. Surreal. 3 months ago, I was fighting to survive. Now I'm an ambassador. The war is ending. It doesn't feel real. It is real, thanks to you. Thanks to both of us. He looked up at her. I couldn't have done this alone. Neither could you. It took both our peoples working together. Speaking of working together, Yura leaned against the balcony railing. We'll need to coordinate the withdrawal, negotiate the details, set up the trade agreements. It's going to take years. Years of meetings instead of battles. I can live with that. They stood in comfortable silence for a while. Then Yura said quietly, I checked the casualty reports from the Europa attack again. Your sister Jiwon. They recovered her body. She's being returned to Mars for burial with full honors. Hyunwoo felt tears on his face. Thank you. For everything you did to make that happen. It was the least I could do. I know she can never be replaced, that no amount of peace will bring her back. But maybe her death wasn't completely meaningless. She died fighting for something. And now that something might actually happen. She would have liked you, Hyunwoo said. Jiwon always believed in finding the good in people, even enemies. I would have liked to meet her. They were quiet again. The moment stretched between them, heavy with things unsaid. Finally, Hyunwoo broke the silence. You saved my life. At the meeting. You pushed me out of the way of that shot. Of course I did. Why? You could have let me die. Would have solved a lot of problems for you. Yura turned to face him fully. Her golden eyes caught the light from Earth below. Because you matter to me, Hyunwoo. These past months, working with you, learning from you. You've changed how I see the universe, how I see my own people. I couldn't let you die. Yura, I know. I know all the reasons we shouldn't care about each other. Different species, former enemies, the power imbalance. But I can't help it. She reached out and gently touched his face with one hand. It was careful, tender. Don't pretend you don't feel it too. He couldn't pretend. The pull between them had been there from the beginning. In the strategy sessions, the late-night conversations, the moments of vulnerability and trust. What started as captive and captor had become something else entirely. This is going to be complicated, he said. Everything worth doing is complicated. My people will think I'm betraying them. My people will think I've lost my mind. She smiled. Let them think what they want. We've already changed the galaxy together. Why stop now? Because I'm human and you're Veltharian. Because you're 9 feet tall and I barely reach your chest. Because you're crown princess and I'm a former rebel. Because... She leaned down and kissed him. It was awkward at first, the size difference making it difficult. But they figured it out. They were good at solving impossible problems together. When they finally pulled apart, Hyunwoo was breathless. You're right, I did want that. I know. She grinned. You're not very good at hiding your feelings. Apparently, neither are you. Down below on Earth, celebrations were starting. Word of the peace treaty had spread. People were dancing in the streets, lighting fires, singing songs. For the first time in a generation, there was hope. Daehyun contacted Hyunwoo's communicator. Captain, are you seeing this? Mars is celebrating too. They're calling you a hero. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who was tired of fighting. That's what makes you a hero. Sora's voice joined the channel. The rest of us wanted revenge, victory. You wanted peace, and you made it happen. We made it happen. All of us together. Fair enough. When you're done up there in your fancy palace, come back down. We're having the biggest party Earth has ever seen. You're buying the first round. Deal. The call ended. Hyunwoo looked up at Yura. Guess I'm buying drinks for the entire resistance. I'll help. I am extraordinarily wealthy now that I'm crown princess. Using royal funds to buy drinks for rebels, that's gotta break some kind of rule. Then we'll break it together. She held out her hand. Partners? He took it. Her hand still dwarfed his, but it felt right. Partners. They stood on the balcony, as Earth turned below them, watching humanity celebrate peace. It wasn't a perfect peace. There would still be challenges, conflicts. The alarm screamed through every corridor of the defiant star. Red lights flashed in the darkness of space as Captain Hyunwoo gripped his command chair with white knuckles. His crew moved like a well-oiled machine around him, but he could see the fear in their eyes. They all knew what was coming. 3 enemy ships closing in fast. His tactical officer Daehyun shouted over the chaos. They came out of nowhere, Captain. It's like they knew exactly where we'd be. Hyunwoo cursed under his breath. The mission had been simple. Sabotage the Veltharian supply route, steal some medicine for the colonies, and disappear into the asteroid field. They had done it a dozen times before. But this time felt different. This time felt like a trap. The ship shuddered as the first blast hit their shields. Sparks flew from a control panel and someone screamed. Hyunwoo stood up, his mind racing through options. They were outgunned and surrounded. Running was impossible. Fighting would be suicide, but surrendering meant execution. The Veltharians didn't take prisoners. Everyone knew that. All power to engines, he ordered. We're going to punch through their line and hope we make it to the jump point. But before his crew could respond, the entire ship went dark. Every light, every screen, every system died at once. Even the emergency lights failed to kick in. Someone had hit them with an electromagnetic pulse. They were dead in the water. Hyunwoo heard the magnetic clamps before he felt them. The heavy thud of a boarding ship attaching to their hull echoed through the silence. Then came the cutting, the high-pitched whine of plasma torches, slicing through their airlock. His crew grabbed their weapons, forming a defensive line in the main corridor. Hyunwoo stood at the front, his pistol loaded and ready. Whatever happens, he told his people, you fought with honor. Earth will remember us. The airlock exploded inward with a blast of compressed air. Smoke filled the corridor. Through the haze, Hyunwoo saw them coming. Veltharian soldiers in their black armor, twice the size of any human. Their forearms carried weapons that could vaporize a man in seconds. They moved with terrifying efficiency, their formations perfect. The firefight lasted maybe 30 seconds. Hyunwoo's crew fought bravely, but it was like throwing stones at a tank. One by one, his people fell or surrendered. Hyunwoo fired until his weapon clicked empty, then drew his combat knife. If he was going to die, he'd die fighting. A massive armored figure stepped through the smoke. This one was different. The armor was decorated with gold and purple markings. Royal colors. The helmet retracted with a hiss, and Hyunwoo found himself staring up at the most alien face he'd ever seen. She was beautiful in a terrifying way. Her skin was deep purple and seemed to shimmer in the emergency lights that had finally flickered on. Her eyes were large and golden, with vertical pupils like a cat. She had 4 arms, each one corded with muscle, and she was huge. Nearly 9 feet tall, towering over him like a giant. You must be the captain, she said in perfect English. Her voice was deep and resonant, carrying an accent he couldn't place. You fight well for such a small creature. Hyunwoo spit blood and raised his knife. Come closer and find out how small, she laughed. Actually laughed. The sound filled the corridor, making some of his crew flinch. With blinding speed, one of her 4 hands shot out and grabbed his wrist. She squeezed just hard enough to make him drop the knife. Another hand caught his throat, not choking but holding him in place. Her other 2 hands remained relaxed at her sides. Spirit. I like that, she said, her golden eyes studying him with curiosity. Do you know who I am, human? A dead woman if you don't let me go, Hyunwoo growled. She smiled, revealing teeth that were just a bit too sharp. I am Princess Yura of House Velthara, 3rd in line to the Imperial throne, and you, brave little captain, have just become very interesting to me. She released him and stepped back. Her soldiers had finished securing his crew, binding their hands but not harming them further. This was wrong. The Veltharians never showed mercy. They were conquerors, slavers, monsters who had turned Earth's colonies into prison camps. They didn't take prisoners, and they certainly didn't chat with rebel captains. What game are you playing? Hyunwoo demanded, rubbing his wrist where she'd grabbed him. No game, Yura said. She walked around him in a slow circle, examining him like he was some curious artifact. Tell me, Captain. What's your name? Hyunwoo, he said before he could stop himself. Something about her presence demanded honesty. Hyunwoo, she repeated, testing the name on her tongue. You and your crew have destroyed 17 of our supply ships in the past year. You've stolen medical supplies, food, and weapons. You've embarrassed 3 admirals and cost the Empire millions in credits. And yet here you stand with nothing but a knife and defiance. Is this the part where you kill us? Daehyun shouted from where he knelt with the other prisoners. Yura glanced at him, then back at Hyunwoo. No, this is the part where I make an unusual decision. She gestured to her soldiers. Release the crew. Let them take their ship and go. Stunned silence filled the corridor. Even her own soldiers seemed confused. One of them, a massive warrior covered in scars, stepped forward. My princess, Imperial law states that— I know what the law states, Yura cut him off with a voice like thunder. But I am a princess of the blood and I claim the right of conquest. These prisoners are mine to do with as I please. Her golden eyes fixed on Hyunwoo. And I have plans for this one. You can't be serious, Hyunwoo said. Just kill me and be done with it. Oh, I'm very serious. Yura moved closer until she loomed over him. Even without the armor, she would have been intimidating. With it, she looked like a war goddess. Your crew goes free, but you, Captain Hyunwoo, are coming with me. You're my war prize now. And if I refuse? She leaned down until her face was level with his. This close, he could see flecks of silver in her golden eyes. He could smell something like cinnamon and steel on her breath. Then I change my mind about your crew. Their fate depends entirely on your cooperation. Hyunwoo looked at his people. Daehyun was shaking his head, mouthing the word no. His engineer, a young woman named Subin, was crying quietly. These were his family. He'd recruited most of them himself. He'd promised to keep them safe. Fine, he said quietly. I'll go with you. Yura straightened up and smiled. It wasn't a cruel smile or a mocking one. It was genuine, almost pleased. Excellent. You've made the right choice, Captain. She turned to her soldiers. Repair their ship enough to reach the nearest human outpost. Give them supplies. Then bring Captain Hyunwoo to my personal shuttle. As the Veltharian soldiers moved to obey, Yura walked toward the airlock. She paused at the entrance and looked back at him over her shoulder. Don't worry, little captain. I promise this will be far more interesting than death. Then she was gone, leaving Hyunwoo to wonder what he'd just agreed to. The meeting was set for a neutral space station on the edge of contested territory. Hyunwoo had arranged it through Tal Ren, sending coded messages to what remained of his old crew. After weeks of preparation, after gathering evidence and planning their strategy, it was time to bring the resistance into the plan. If they could unite the resistance with Yura's reformist faction, they could expose Rokthan and end the war properly. That was the dream. But as Hyunwoo stood in the docking bay watching Yura's shuttle prepare to depart, he felt nothing but anxiety. You look worried, Yura said, approaching him. She was in full armor again, ready for potential combat. Second thoughts? About 1,000 of them. He checked his weapon for the third time. These are my people, Yura. If they don't believe me, if they think I've been turned against them, this could get ugly. Then we make them believe. We show them the evidence. We prove that we're fighting the same enemy. It's not that simple. You're the face of the occupation. Your ships have bombed their homes. Your soldiers have killed their families. They're not going to trust you just because I say they should. Yura knelt down so they were at eye level. Then we don't ask for trust. We ask for cooperation. One mission, one chance to prove we're sincere. That's all we need. She made it sound so reasonable. But Hyunwoo knew his people, knew how deep the hatred ran. This could go wrong in 100 different ways. The station was small and decrepit, barely maintained. It had been a trading post once back before the war. Now it was a ghost town with flickering lights and recycled air that smelled stale. Perfect neutral ground because neither side wanted it. They met in an old cargo bay, empty except for a few crates and broken equipment. Hyunwoo walked in first, his hands visible and empty. Yura followed a few steps behind, her guard staying at the entrance. The message was clear. They came in peace. Daehyun was there, looking older and more tired than Hyunwoo remembered. Subin stood beside him, her face hard and unforgiving. And there, at the front of the small group, was Commander Sora, the leader of the Mars Resistance, a legend who'd orchestrated a dozen successful operations against the Empire. Hyunwoo. Daehyun's voice cracked with emotion. You're alive. We thought, I'm fine. Hyunwoo moved forward, wanting to embrace his old friend. But the look in Daehyun's eyes stopped him. There was pain there, and suspicion. Fine? Sora stepped forward. She was short, compact with scars across her face and hands. You've been missing for 2 months. We tracked you to the princess's flagship, and now you show up with her. Asking for a meeting? What the hell is going on? I know this looks bad, Hyunwoo said, but I need you to listen. All of you. I've discovered something that changes everything. The only thing that's changed is you, Subin said bitterly. You abandoned us. Went over to their side. I didn't abandon anyone. I've been working undercover, gathering intelligence. He pulled out a data chip. This contains proof that the Empire has been staging false flag attacks. Bombings blamed on us that were actually done by their own military. It's all a scam to keep the war going. Sora crossed her arms. And why should we believe you? You could have been brainwashed. Or worse, turned traitor. Because I can prove it. He activated a holographic display showing the evidence, the communication logs, the authorization codes, the financial records, everything he and Yura had compiled. General Rokthan has been orchestrating this for years. He's the one who's been prolonging the war. The resistance fighters gathered around, studying the data. Hyunwoo watched their faces, trying to gauge their reactions. Daehyun looked shocked. Subin seemed uncertain. Sora's expression was unreadable. "This is interesting," Sora said finally. "But it doesn't change the fundamental problem. The Empire still occupies our worlds. They're still the enemy. Not all of them." Hyunwoo gestured to Yura, who had been standing silently through the presentation. "Princess Yura wants to end this war. She's been working with me to expose the conspiracy. If we can remove Rokthan and his supporters, we can negotiate a real peace." "Peace?" Sora's laugh was bitter. "There's no peace with the people who enslaved us. There's only victory or death." "That's exactly what they want you to think." Yura spoke for the first time. Her deep voice filled the cargo bay. "General Rokthan profits from your hatred. The longer you fight, the more credits flow into his accounts. He needs you to be angry, to be vengeful, because that keeps the war machine running. Don't you dare lecture us about hatred." Subin stepped forward, her hand on her weapon. "Your people killed thousands of us. You destroyed entire colonies." "I know." Yura's voice was steady. "And I can't undo that. But I can try to stop it from continuing. That's why I'm here. Not to ask forgiveness, but to offer cooperation. One mission to take down Rokthan and expose the conspiracy. After that, if you still want to fight, I won't stop you." "How generous," Sora said sarcastically. "And we're just supposed to believe you? Trust that this isn't a trap?" "Yes," Yura said simply. "I'm asking for faith in something bigger than our conflict. Faith that there might be a better way." The silence stretched. Hyunwoo could feel the tension, thick enough to cut. This was the moment. Either they believed him or they didn't. Then Sora's communicator beeped. She answered it, her face going pale as she listened. "When?" she demanded. "How many casualties?" A pause. "Understood." She lowered the communicator and looked at Hyunwoo with eyes full of fury. "There's been an attack on Europa. A Veltharian strike team hit one of our supply bases. 47 dead, including several civilians who were being evacuated." Hyunwoo felt his heart sink. "When did this happen?" 3 hours ago. Right about the time your princess's fleet would have been passing through that sector." All eyes turned to Yura. Her expression was one of genuine shock. "I gave no such order. My fleet was under strict instructions to avoid hostile action during these negotiations." "Then explain how your ships were spotted in the area," Sora demanded. "I can't, unless—" Yura's eyes widened. "Rokthan. He must have known about this meeting. He sent ships with my fleet's signature to attack your base, to make sure we'd never work together." "How convenient," Sora drew her weapon. "You attack us and then claim it was someone else. Do you think we're stupid?" "Wait." Hyunwoo stepped between them. "Think about this. If Yura wanted to attack you, why would she come here unarmed? Why would she bring evidence of the conspiracy? This is exactly what Rokthan wants. He's trying to turn us against each other." "Or you've been played," Daehyun said quietly. "Maybe she's been using you this whole time, Hyunwoo. Feeding you information to make you trust her while her forces continue their attacks." "My sister was there." Sora's voice shook. Jiwon was at that base. She was helping evacuate civilians. They're still counting the bodies. The world stopped. Hyunwoo felt like he'd been punched in the chest. "Jiwon? My sister Jiwon?" "Yes, your baby sister. The one you swore to protect. She's dead because of this alien's forces." Rage flooded through him, white-hot and overwhelming. He turned to Yura, his hand moving to his weapon before he could think. "You said she'd be safe. You promised me." "I didn't know," Yura said, and he could hear real pain in her voice. "Hyunwoo, I swear I had no knowledge of this attack." "You have to believe me." "Believe you?" His voice came out as a snarl. "My sister is dead because I trusted you, because I thought you actually wanted peace. The attack was staged," Yura insisted, "by Rokthan, to destroy our alliance." "Can't you see that?" "All I see is that Jiwon is dead and you're making excuses." The cargo bay erupted in chaos. Sora ordered her people to surround Yura. The Veltharian guards at the entrance raised their weapons. Everyone was shouting, fingers on triggers, seconds away from a bloodbath, and then a blast rang out. Hyunwoo felt something hit him hard from the side. He crashed to the ground, his vision swimming. There was shouting, more weapons fire. He tried to stand, but his leg wasn't working right. He looked down and saw blood. A lot of blood. Through the confusion, he saw a resistance fighter lying dead, a sniper rifle beside him. The shot had been meant for Yura, but she'd moved. Pushed Hyunwoo out of the way. The blast had hit him instead. Yura was above him suddenly, all four of her hands trying to stop the bleeding. "Medic!" she roared. "Get me a medic now. Why?" Hyunwoo's voice was weak. "Why did you save me?" "Because I care about you, you fool." Her eyes were wet again, tears streaming down her purple face. "Because none of this means anything if you die." The world was getting fuzzy. He could hear Daehyun shouting orders to fall back. Could hear Yura demanding her ship's medical team. Everything was chaos and noise and pain. His last thought before darkness took him was that Jiwon was gone. His baby sister. The girl he'd promised their parents he'd protect. And he'd failed her. Failed everyone. He woke up in a medical bay. White walls, clean sheets, the smell of antiseptic. For a moment he thought he was back on the Eternal Dominion. Then he saw Yura sleeping in a chair beside his bed, her massive form somehow looking small and vulnerable. She'd stayed with him, despite everything. Despite the accusations and the attack and the complete disaster of the meeting. She'd stayed. "You're awake." Yura's eyes opened. She looked exhausted. "How do you feel?" "Like I got shot." His voice was hoarse.